Let's welcome Nikole Parker. I know, I could not get her in bed with me. Next time, I promise you. So Nikole Parker, she's the director of transgender equality for Equality Florida. Through advocacy, Nikole hopes to encourage open dialogue on gender issues, state and federal protections for all, and linkage to proper transitioning resources. Her hope is to teach people that the black market way of transitioning isn't the only way. Welcome, Nikole.
Hi, how are you?
Good, beautiful. Thank you for saying yes and being on the FayWhat show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So most of the time I do most of my interviews in bed, all right? And so, when I found out it was you and then I saw your picture, I was like, damn it, we couldn't get Nikole Parker in my bed? That's awful.
So
next,
me with a good time.
right? Don't twist my arm. So next time in bed, next time you're down here in South Florida, for sure. So what is your position over at Equality Florida? I mean, thank you for everything that you do to begin with. Equality Florida is just an incredible organization, always going to bat for us. What is your present role there?
Thank you so much. My present role is the Director of Transgender Equality. So my focus is making sure that trans and non-binary inclusion is weaved through everything that we do here at Equality Florida.
Well, and that's so important. Do you think that your own personal journey helps you with doing this?
Definitely. I think, honestly, being a Black trans woman in this day and age is difficult. It's hard. I mean, it was hard when I started, but I feel like the hate and the bigotry that we see now makes it 10 times as hard. But for me, I choose to use my voice and use my platform to advocate for my community, because at the end of the day, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and people who fought for us to get here. And I feel that, it's up to me to use my voice and all of us advocates to continue to do that, to move the needle forward for the next generation.
And it's so important. Trans Visibility Day is on the 31st. And, I was telling a friend of mine, I hope that I live in a world that we don't need a Trans Visibility Day, that we don't need a day to be for our trans brothers and sisters to be seen. In my world, a trans woman is a woman, a trans man is a man, done, period, end of story. There's no other question to be asked, and that's it. Why do you think the rest of the world can't follow suit that way?
I think it's just this narrative that's painted about us trans folks. There's an amazing documentary called Disclosure, and I think it's still on Netflix.
I loved it. Yes.
I'm telling you, it really shows people how we were demonized from the beginning of time. And that naturally goes through generations to generation. And also, it's uneducation. People fear what they don't understand. People fear what they don't know. And someone like me is, I guess, super intimidating just because I chose to live authentically. For me, I'm like, hey, I'm just living my life. I'm just being me. This is who I am. But for some people, it's so abstract. And I think as far as we've come in this world, when I look at the LGBTQ plus acronym, I feel that LG and B, people pretty much understand that. But I think when it comes to trans and non-binary, we're 10 to 20 years behind.
God, and that's so sad because I can't even debate you on that, and I think that even within our own acronym we have issues. I think that the L and the G and the B should be going harder, standing up stronger. People seem to forget that at the beginning of the Stonewall riots in New York, it was Black and brown trans women that were leading the way. Everybody forgets that. They think that it's just some white gay men that made things happen, and that's not the truth.
Right. And you see that in history all of the time. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. I often say in LGBTQ plus, the T is silent. And what I mean by that is trans people are the first to come and fight for our community as a whole. But when we see these horrendous attacks relentlessly on my community, when we look back at 2021, it was the deadliest year on record with 57 plus murders. And sometimes I feel, I'm not going to say sometimes, majority of the time, I feel like the rest of the community turns a blind eye. And we're being killed in masses, and I feel like people aren't recognizing it. And it's really hurtful because we're here to fight for the community, and we want that same support as well.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, the amount of Black and brown women that are killed every day. Last year alone, just like you said, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, how many more have to die before we really take notice? It's not like this started yesterday. This has been going on for a very long time, and we've put light on it. Puerto Rico even did it, went under emergency watch because of the amount of Black and brown women that were being killed on an everyday basis, trans women that were being killed. What should we be doing? What should I pass And I'm very well aware, that I am privileged in that route, that right. If I don't open my mouth, you don't know that I am a lesbian. And I am Latina, but I'm also lighter, What can someone like me do for my trans brothers and sisters?
Absolutely. I often say allies always ask, how can we be better allies? And one way is challenge your friends and family. Now, what I mean by that is we've all heard anti trans conversations where folks are like, oh, those trans people, or oh, they're too much. And I challenge our allies to say, what do you mean by that? Or have you ever met a trans person? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that in our friend groups and in our family groups, sometimes just having an open dialogue can really get people to have the light bulb go off.
Yeah.
And you saying, hey, trans people are just people, trans women are women, trans men are men, can really get somebody to say, oh, wait, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. So I always just say, if you hear that, just kind of push back. You don't have to be aggressive. I know some folks don't want to be, the activists or anything, but you can just have an honest conversation.
Just being frank, just being who you are. One of my closest friends is a woman living the trans experience, and she's my world. So she is part of my everyday, and so I bring her around people that maybe have never been in front of a trans person to their knowledge, And then it's like, okay, is it up to me to educate this person? Yes, you're freaking right. It's up to me to educate this person, because if I don't, this might be the only time that they run into someone that's trans and maybe get the education that they need.
Absolutely. And I think that's it, that you hit the nail on the head. It's sometimes you as an ally are the only person that can introduce a trans or non-binary person into your circle, or get folks that maybe don't understand. You can say, hey, I have a friend, look, she's human just like anybody else. And it's really making that, that comparison that we're all just human at the end of the day. We're all different. People do things that I don't agree with, and I do things that people don't agree with. And that's just humanity. But at the end of the day, no one should be humanist. Mm-hmm.
And it's this, for the L and the G and the B. I mean, that's how we got ahead, or whatever it is, to let people know that we're just like everybody else. I was on a radio talk show in New York, right? And it was a Spanish talk show, and the Black and brown community can be very harsh to LGBTQ plus, and absolutely. I would get so much hate mail, and I would get awful comments on social media. But it was that once or two times that somebody would reach out and say, oh, when you said that you and your partner, you got mad at your partner for not throwing out the trash, I didn't know you guys had regular, honest fights just like straight people. And it was like, God, you really think that like we're in a cage or something? Like that we are just from another planet.
Yeah, they really do. They think that just because we may love different, or just because I had to go through some type of transition in my life, that we don't have the same kind of everyday issues. And that's just not true. I still have to take out the trash. I got to pay my bills and take out my dog like everyone else.
Yeah. Nick, what do you think what's something that you wish people knew about trans folks? Somebody that has never met a trans person, and then they're seeing all these anti-trans bills trying to be passed, and they're hearing "Don't Say Gay," and they're seeing Tucker Carlson talk about how we're just awful people. Like, what would you tell someone, something that you wish people knew about trans folks?
Right, that trans people have been here since the beginning of time. And I know that folks try to paint this picture that we just landed off some spaceship somewhere here, but that's not true. Humanity is complex. Humanity is beautiful. And imagine we all looked alike and lived the same way. How boring would life be? You know what I mean? And I just really always want to bring to the forefront our humanity, because we're just human at the end of the day. We just want to be happy and live authentically. I may have just had to go through a little bit more than some folks to get here, but we all have the same end goal of just being happy.
What are some of the disparities that trans and non-binary people face that the other letters in the acronym probably don't?
Yeah, I mean, homelessness is a huge issue. But if you want to look in the trans community, how specific it is, there's a lot of trans folks that would rather sleep on the streets than go to a shelter because of the discrimination they can face, the violence that they can face. A trans person who doesn't have their identity documents changed, going to job interviews, going to even simply a bar and having to show your ID that doesn't match is a horrific experience. I'll never forget when I was younger, early on in my transition, I hadn't got my identity documents changed, and I was applying for a job. And they thought I was great until it was time to give all of my information. And he looked at my ID, looked at me, looked at my ID, and said, we'll give you a call. and never called it that. And that is the honest reality of trans folks every single day. And that's why survival sex work comes in. That's why, just surviving to live is a real way of life for folks like me.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, my chosen family sister, when she was a couple months into her transition, she had to go buy a car, and all her documents weren't set, so she had to go as her dead name, and it broke her in a million pieces, Nikole, to have to do that, because for her, she was taking 3 steps back and not being who she truly is, and that broke my heart, and that's something that I will never have to endure, and people don't get it, don't get that.
Yes.
What was? Do you have a connection with One Pulse, with the One Pulse Foundation?
Yeah, so Pulse was my safe space. I was born and raised here in Orlando, and we had 3 gay bars back then, and everyone had their own, but Pulse was mine. And Pulse was one of the first places that I ever went as Nikole. Pulse was one of the first places that I ever felt seen and accepted. And when your safe space is yanked from you overnight, you can't really put that into words. So I started volunteering for them in early 2016, right after the tragedy. And I was with them up until the 5th year mark of Pulse. So that is definitely an initiative and an organization that's very close to my heart.
And I love that they decided last year to do the memorial. I mean, that was a long time coming. I think they should have decided that year one. That was apparent that was needed, and that we needed that. We needed somewhere to go to grieve all those people that we lost.
Absolutely. So it was always the intention to create a memorial museum, but back in I think 2019 is when we announced the design of the memorial and museum. But I will say, it's just amazing to see how many folks still go to the Intra Memorial. I'm not, there day to day, but I live very close, and every time I drive by, I see folks there, and that just really touches my heart because my job there was working with families and survivors, and I know how much that means to them when they see folks that still pay respects to their loved ones because they just don't want them to be forgotten.
Definitely, definitely. My wonderful partner in crime here at the Happening Out Television Network, Al Ferguson, he lost someone very close to him at Pulse. Top Hat Eddie was one of his closest friends, and when somebody had vandalized that the small memorial that was there, he was in tears because he could just imagine the families that went, because that was their graves. That was where they were able to mourn their loved ones. So I'm really glad that this memorial is going to happen. It's going to be beautiful. Thank you for all the service that you did, part of that. Now, since you're in Orlando, I got to ask you about Disney, girl. I got to ask you about Disney. So, Don't Say Gay passed. And, a lot of people weren't surprised that it passed. We're surprised that bill was even brought up, but that's a whole other story. So Disney's one of the biggest employers for LGBTQ plus, if not the biggest here in Florida. They didn't go to bat for us beforehand, and now they're trying to kind of make amends and trying to fix. Hey, sorry about we should have come through. We should have never given this money to these people that were these politicians that were actually going behind Don't Say Gay, and here we are. What do you think about that?
It's really difficult because Disney is, huge here in Orlando. It is one of the biggest theme parks here. And like you said, it employs so many LGBTQ plus people. And, we at Equality Florida, we stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ staff members. And, it's important to hold organizations accountable. It's important to be truly inclusive, but it's also important to allow folks to right their wrongs and allow folks to correct their mistakes. So I look forward to seeing what Disney has, coming down, and hopefully that they can rectify everything that's happened and move forward, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to see change. We want to see progress. And if they can, rectify that and move forward, I think that would be a great, kind of like foundation for Orlando and other organizations who maybe haven't said anything as well.
Yeah, because the president of Disney, Mr. Chapek, I mean, people are saying, hey, he should resign or he should step down, and I don't think that's true. If he's trying to make the amends, Nikole, like everybody knows who watches my show, I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for 7 years, and as part of the 12-step program that I'm about, after you clean up your side of the street, you've got to make sure that that's sparkling clean, okay, before you start laying down the groundwork for your new life, and that is making amends for your wrongs. We all commit errors. We're human. We've got to allow people the ability to make a mistake and come back and say, hey, I made a mistake. what can I do to make things better?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And what's beautiful is to see, I feel like around Don't Say Gay, even as horrific as it was, the community truly united around one cause. And the accountability coming out just from the community to these organizations, the school walkouts. I mean, it has been just incredible to see the momentum and how we really can band together when it's an attack on our community. Because I'll be the first one to say it, I feel like we're the worst to each other. And our unity isn't always really obvious, but in this moment during the Don't Say Gay bill passing and everything, it's been beautiful to see our community come together as one.
Yeah, it always takes like bad crap to get us together. Don't get it. Don't get it. Nikole, your journey from coming out to where you are today is incredible and inspirational. Where are you going from here?
So, I'm finally in a place where I'm happy. And I know that, that's what everybody's looking for. But for me, it took so long. I'm now 10 years in my transition. And I look back and I'm like, where has this time gone? But I'm just excited to continue my advocacy. I'm excited to uplift the voices of Black and brown, trans and non-binary people, particularly Black trans women, because I think a lot of the times, especially in nonprofit sectors everywhere, it's the same voices speaking about the same things. And I think it's up to us as leaders to know when it's time to uplift those around us. So I'm looking forward to making sure to use my voice and my privilege to advocate for those, but also move out of the way and make space for a diverse group of people to be able to tell their stories, because that's the beauty of humanity. It's not hearing the same people talk. It's about having a tribe together to fight.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Unity, baby. That's what we need. I hope that we do live in a world that someday it won't be the constant horror of our Black and brown sisters being killed. I really do hope so. And with people like you, we might live to see that day. So, Miss Nikole, thank you so much for everything that you do over at Equality Florida. Being the director for transgender equality, we need 1 million of people. We need 1 million women doing exactly what you're doing. Your voice is loud and your voice is being heard, and just keep screaming, sister, because we need you. We need you big time.
I so appreciate that. And thank you. Thank you for having a safe space like this for folks to talk. Thank you for uplifting the voices of marginalized people, because a lot of the times we're, as a community, we're squirming. We're trying to fight for rights and dignities and everything. And sometimes we just don't have a space like this just to talk and be ourselves. So thank you for all you do as well.
Thank you, Mama. Well, you are welcome here anytime, Miss Nikole. Miss Nikole Parker, please follow her on social media. You're going to see everything that she's doing fantastic for our community and being the beautiful woman that she is. Don't forget, you owe me. Next time you're on the FayWhat show, you're getting in bed. You promised.
Yes. Gotcha.
All right. Thank you, honey. See you soon.
Thank you, my love.
So, did you enjoy the show? I know you did. So make sure to click subscribe so you won't miss any of the events, news, or interviews right here on the FayWhat show. Ring the bell at the bottom of the screen, right there, so you'll be alerted every time we're live. You can also click on the Happening Out Television Network logo so you can see all of the shows on the most diverse LGBTQ plus media network. Find out just what we're doing to bring the L and the G together right here on the FayWhat show. Get the week's